Hi everyone, my name is Vera, and you're watching another episode of Madiff Talks, our space to bring tech leaders, product people, and innovators to discuss the hottest topics in tech. And this time we will understand the potential and challenges that DeFi presents in reshaping our global financial infrastructure. And especially for today, we have a specialist in this area in financial services, and he has been actively speaking about many topics within blockchain and crypto. So today I'm happy to have Gustavo here with me. Hello,
Hi,
Gustavo.
Vera. Very nice to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm really excited for the discussion that we're gonna have.
Thank you, amazing, and thank you from our side as well for accepting to join us. This is our first episode of the year. Second, also the first episode that we fully dedicate to DeFi. So I was hoping that we could perhaps start from you giving us details about you and what you've been working on when it comes to the topic of our conversation today.
Okay, so I kind of divide my career in two parts. The first part is the traditional financial market, where I worked for 25 years. So dealing with all the discussions about FX and fixed income investments. Uh, in 2015, I kind of discovered the Bitcoin and all the transformation that it would imply uh, for the infrastructure of the financial markets. Got in love with it and just jumped on this crypto environment. Since then, things have evolved a lot. So when I started back then, there was a big segregation between the traditional financial market and what we call crypto or DeFi. Now they're kind of coming together, which is really good in my view. And But we have a lot of discussions and a lot of things that changed. And just come to the topic itself, I work in a lot of projects. I'm an advisor of a lot of projects, DeFi or crypto projects that are involved in this discussion. I'm one of the mentors of the innovation the program that's handled by FENASBAC in Brazil, which is a kind of well-known discussion. I just wrote a book. Unfortunately, for now, it's just in Portuguese about the tokenization of money. Right, so it's available on the Kindle. It's going to be available on printing soon, and that's what I do. I'm also the CEO of ThinkTrender. I produce a lot of content on this. I have an interview with people involved on DeFi and cryptocurrencies every week since 4 years ago. So there's a lot of content and a lot of things that I'm produce, and it's a lot of discussions on these environments. What I really like is this kind of things that we are doing here to, let's say, to have the discussions on what we have now, what I see in terms of crypto in the future, and how we're gonna put that together for a better environment for everyone. I think that's the thing that I really like, and that's my core, I would say.
Yeah, and sorry, and you already left us with a lot of stuff to keep an eye on. Like we will always leave our guest social media, so people already know that they have a lot to look for as well for your book and this interview you just mentioned. So for sure, already a lot to discuss. And I can tell you that we usually try to make sure that none of our followers is unable to follow a certain episode because they don't master a certain topic, especially for those who are not so well versed in technology. So, for me included, let me explain, because we discuss a lot about blockchain and the Web3 space, but maybe I'm not so much into finance related topics, so I will also need your help. So, how would you explain what DeFi is and why it's generating so much attention in recent years?
I think DeFi is it's not. Let me just go some steps back to explain what's DeFi, right? I think that the global financial market evolved a lot in the last decades, but they're not really global yet, right? Think about a person here in Europe that wants to send money to China. So they need to open an account in China. They need to transfer that to do the FX transaction. It's going to take like some days to get there. or at least some hours to get there. There's a lot of intermediaries on the way to get for the money to get there. Let's say we have this local financial system in Europe. We also have in US, in Brazil, in China, in all the countries. So it's not really well integrated. I kind of can say that's not really global yet, right? It's better than it was like 30 years ago for sure, but there's a lot of inefficiencies on that. And that's where DeFi comes to handle that, right? So I discovered DeFi in 2000 or the blockchain infrastructure in 2015. That was the ICO area. There was a lot of ICOs happening at initial coin offerings happening at that moment. And I wanted to invest in a startup in China, and I was living in Brazil at that moment. And it was really difficult for me. Okay, how do I invest like $1,000 in a startup in China using the traditional financial markets? It's impossible, right? I would pay so much fees for the money to get there that I would get less money than I would send at that moment. So with blockchain, I just used the Ethereum blockchain. It was 2016. Just using the Ethereum blockchain and sent Ether to the founder of the fintech there in China. It happened in like a couple of seconds, like minutes. The money was there. They could get this investment. They sent me the token, which was more or less the share of this company. So that was really easy. That was the thing that kind of showed me how powerful this technology is and how it can change the financial markets, right? Because and we're talking about 2016, but on the traditional financial market, if you move from 2016 to now, the procedure would be more or less the same. It's less costly now to do this transaction, but it would cost a lot yet, right? So that's not an easy thing. So that's the thing that's kind of opened my eye to this new infrastructure that the blockchain was bringing. DeFi is all the solutions that are made using these infrastructures, right? So on the traditional financial market, for example, you can invest in a bond. You can swap currencies and this kind of thing. So when you're talking about the blockchain or the DeFi, it's more or less the same idea. So we can swap tokens. We can invest in some platforms that pays you some interest. So it's more or less the same idea that they are kind of replicating in DeFi, but in a infrastructure that it's much more transparent. It's much more cheap. There's much less intermediaries, and it's really global. So it's 24/7 as well, right? So that's these things, these 4 or 5 things that I mentioned, change a lot in terms of perspectives, right? And what I'm talking now is just and it is the beginning of the DeFi, because as this infrastructure is much more efficient, much more fast, and much more transparent, there's a lot of other solutions that nowadays we can see that are able just using this infrastructure, that you cannot replicate that on the traditional financial market anymore, right? So that's a thing that tells me that we're gonna move to this, right? There's a lot of things that we need to discuss on this movement from one infrastructure to another, but that's the way it will go, in my view. So that's one of the reasons why I always say to people, guys, start to understand what DeFi is, because the things that we do now using banks, exchange, stock exchange in the traditional financial market, they will be in this infrastructure in the future, and DeFi showing us the way. So the earlier you see that, the well prepared you're gonna be when it becomes life for our day-to-day life, let's say. I
Okay.
don't know if I
So
was too technical. I tried to do that very easy
yeah,
here.
no, the real life example you gave in the beginning, I think it made it a lot more tangible, like how to understand how many processes this type of transferences would have to go through, and how they are made a lot easier with this sort of infrastructure.
Let me
So
just give you. Let me just give you
yeah,
another example on this answer. Then it will clarify you even more, Vera. So in DeFi, there's a possibility of you do things, thing that we call money streaming. What that means? That means that I could put a transaction that pays you some cents of a dollar of a stable coin every 15 or 20 seconds, right? So, okay, that sounds to be crazy. Why should I do that? But imagine that you're gonna adjust that to the things that you are doing as an employee, right? Right? Why should you receive your salary just once a month? Wouldn't it be better if you just have the tasks, as you complete the task you receive the money automatically, right? So that's the thing that it's possible on DeFi nowadays, and this effect structure provides the solution for that. On the traditional financial market, you could handle that, but that would be a lot of work, a lot of workarounds for you to get to this solution. On the blockchain, on DeFi, that's native. That's easy for you to program and to do that. Just to give you another example.
Sure. That, but I don't know if it was a good idea, because now you place me with another doubt. But I think I will refrain from placing it now, just because what you mentioned reminds me of, unfortunately, some sort of scams that have been appearing, that follow more or less a little bit this same structure that you were saying. But I will write you later. But I do want to grab an idea that you just mentioned, which is the fact that DeFi is this constantly evolving industry, and that is now converging with other areas, like you were saying. So there are still most likely some uncertainties and challenges that these players are facing. Can you please somehow elaborate on some of these main challenges that DeFi is currently facing?
Okay, I think that the first challenge that DeFi faced was that DeFi just handled the crypto tokens, right? Like Ethereum, Bitcoin, this thing. So it was very difficult for you to compare DeFi with the traditional financial market because the assets were different, right? In a certain moment, they started to replicate the fiat currencies on the blockchain, on the Ethereum blockchain, for example, with the stable coins, USDC, USDT, and all others. So that make the thing much easier for us to compare, right? I can invest in USDC earning X percent a year on the DeFi, and I can invest in the traditional financial market USD earning X percent a year. So you could compare that and check the risks much easier. So one of the first tokens that the first group of tokens that made it possible were the stable coins, and they are really powerful in terms of helping the fight to evolve and to be comparable to the traditional financial market. I think the second thing that is happening now, it's the discussions about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. That's okay. The central banks around the world look at this discussion and said, okay, we have an infrastructure that's really powerful, much better than the infrastructure that we have. The stable coins show that if the people move to a stable coin, first thing we need to regulate stable coins, right? How we regulate that. That's the second thing. The second idea is that why don't we have our own stable coin? The central bank issuing its own currency on a blockchain, which is called a CBDC in the sense. So that's the thing that we are discussing now. It started in 2018 with Facebook, at the time Meta today. Uh, uh, they got this idea of doing their own stable coin, which called, they changed it to Dian. At the time it was Libra, the name. So imagine like Facebook issuing a currency or a stable coin for 2 billion people around the world. That's when really the central banks said, "Oops, I need to start working on that, because if this big tech company starts to issue their stable coins, how do I handle my currency?" So that's a really important point, inflection point on this discussion as well. So I think the moment that we are now, in my view, is that there's no discussion around the world that this infrastructure will be the next infrastructure for the central banks. or for the financial markets in the future. The discussion now is that how we move from what we have now into that, and what things we should keep from the infrastructure that we have now, right? So of course, we don't need to build anything from scratch, and there's some regulation that needs to adjust for that, and we need to do that. So, but there's a lot of central banks dealing with that. BIS, for example, the central bank of the central banks, they're always saying that, so guys, you need to work on CBDC, not just on the local systems, but also thinking about the connection globally with other systems. Because if they started doing like segregated blockchains, what we call permissioned blockchains, that don't really connect to others, we're going to replicate what we have now, right, in the end. So that's not the idea. So I think that's it. I think that the main discussions now in terms of DeFi is about this, the regulation of DeFi, how we get all these ideas and use that on the traditional financial markets.
Okay. It's funny to see that you follow more or less the same line of thought that the other guests that we have, speaking about everything that is somehow related to decentralization. I mean, a lot of them showed great concerns when it comes to what you were saying, like a certain regulatory uncertainty and a certain lack of governance. But what about security? Do you think security also poses big challenges that could hinder the widespread adoption of DeFi, for instance?
I think the widespread of DeFi, it's going to be on a regulated market, right? We're gonna get these ideas that we are evolving in DeFi to that. I'm not really concerned about DeFi itself. I think that's really a kind of playground with a lot of ideas. Some are good, some are not. Some are scams, that are, as you said. So we need to really take care on that, because there's no one there, no father there to help us on that. So we are kind of alone on this discussion when we're dealing with DeFi. But there's really good things being done on this environment that could, let's say, apply to the traditional financial market. About security itself, when we apply these things to the traditional financial markets, I'm really comfortable with that, because the security issue in banks, they kind of handle that. So of course we see some issues on some bank accounts that were explored, or kind of this kind of thing, but that's really not common. That's just one case here and there. Normally the security infrastructure of the banks and the traditional financial market are really good, right? So and that's one of the things that we don't really need to start from scratch. They have it. It's really good. So let's just kind of use that to turn DeFi better, or to get they'll say on the middle, right, on what DeFi have with the security that the traditional financial market has.
Okay. Well, Gustavo, I need to tell I need to tell you that usually the type of people who watch our episodes can be, I would say there are one of two situations: either someone who is really into the topic and then they just come and watch what other people are saying about the topic, or they're either someone who doesn't really understand and they are giving the topic a chance. Okay. So for the second group of people, I think at this point they are probably thinking, how do I, the average person, win from this? Because at the end of the day, people who work in these areas, they are developing for a community, right? So it would be good if you could tell us more or less what are the practical effects that we can expect to see from adopting DeFi more and more.
Okay, I think that better than to say the future, that I could say here, and I'm really positive about that. I have a clear view on what's going to happen. But my advice for everyone is to start doing two things that I think that's really important. Start to learn what's happening, and how to watch like a podcast like these ones, or books, or other podcasts, these kind of things, and to experiment. So I think that the non-permissioned blockchains like Ethereum, Arbitrum, Polygon, and others are very kind of cheap in terms of they're not expensive for you to start testing. So you have just a couple of dollars or euros, you can just start testing and check and do, and let's say, and get this money, invest some money on this experimentation for you to see what's gonna what I'm saying, right? So I think that that's the first thing. So go for the education, try to learn the things, then go to the for the experimentation, right? So that's the thing that I advise everyone to do. As you start that, you're probably going to get to, I hope you get to the same conclusion that I have, that there's a lot of things that you can do on this environment that's not possible nowadays on the traditional financial market, right? Things here are more transparent, are 24/7, are less are easier for you to do, are there's no intermediary. You can do that by yourself anytime that you want. So you can have your tokens, you have the custody of everything. Of course, there's of always ups and downs in terms of that, because there's a security issue that you mentioned, right? You need to do that by yourself. There's not a bank that's helping you on that. But if you just put a small money for you to understand that and to experiment that, you're gonna see, okay, that's a powerful thing. And you're gonna also can see what are the touching points that needs to evolve, which more or less discussion about security, custody, and the things that you are regulation and the things that you are saying. Because I think that's what I think that's really important is that, so as you experiment that, you're gonna feel what I'm saying. But it's really clear for me that we're gonna move for this kind of blockchain infrastructure for the global financial markets. Uh, just to get to for the ones that are not really involved on that or doesn't know a lot about that. So I think that we if you do look at that from a timeline, so the financial traditional market evolved a lot up to the 90s. Then we had all the fintech discussions, right? There's fintechs would come, would destroy the banks, the financial market, and everything. What do we find out after that? That the fintechs came just to kind of try to upgrade a little bit what was done. So it was the same systems, but they were doing that better. They were doing that cheaper, but using the same infrastructure in the same system. When we're talking about DeFi and blockchain, we are talking not an upgrade. We are talking about moving to a different infrastructure, right? So it's a different system that it's much more efficient, much more transparent, much less intermediaries. There's a possibility that you do your custody. There's a lot of things that changes in this, right? And turns that more efficient. But to move from one to another, it takes more time. It's much more difficult than to implement a fintech on the traditional financial market. That's a discussion that we are having now, right? So it's not just an upgrade; it's really a different infrastructure. So it's a big change that we're gonna see with a lot of implications on what we do on a daily basis. Going as a trying to do a kind of future prediction here. So when I started dealing with technology some years ago, I think there was this idea of when I get some milk from my fridge, get the milk out of my fridge, someone would get the milk from the cow that will send to the intermediary. Then the milk will come to my fridge in 1 or 2 days after that, right? For that to happen, we need to have a really good and fast payment system. The traditional payment system is not as good as and efficient to deal with all these transactions and these things. So all this transformation that our IoT will bring in this example of the milk on the fridge and the milk on the cow, it depends on a really powerful and fast financial market. And I think that blockchain is part of that. And that's why I really positive that we're going to move from this traditional financial market infrastructure that we have to a blockchain infrastructure.
Mhm. Well, I think that somehow already answers something I wanted to ask you after, which is like what type of innovations or changes you think it would bring. But like you mentioned, so this merging of a blockchain infrastructure that would make us transition faster and better from a traditional banking system, right?
Yeah, I think that that's it. So that's as the world is evolving very fast, we need to upgrade the traditional the financial systems that we have, and I think this upgrade will rely a lot on blockchain, right? I think that that's the main point that I would like to leave to everyone, and the good thing is that we can be part of that, right? We can invest in startups that are doing this. We can buy tokens of these startups to do that. We can test the systems using the public blockchains and check, oh, that's good. That will help. It can give you some idea or a business that you wanna do that doesn't have a solution now on the traditional financial market, but on that it could have. So that's the things that are really important, and I feel that people it's just a matter of trying. Just go there, send some money to one exchange, buy some tokens, and put that on the MetaMask and try and start using, because it's I'm quite sure that everyone that at least everyone that I've talked so far that tried that said, "Oh, that's good. That's really good. That helped. That's it's really different and much faster and much easier than the what we do now."
Well, thank you a lot. Thank you a lot for your advice. We're getting close to the end of our episode, which means that I couldn't leave you. I couldn't leave you without answering the $1 million question, of course, which is, of course, you just finished by giving an advice, but apart from what you told us, if you could elaborate on something more specific, if you could leave those new starters, those newcomers into DeFi with one advice on something they should be careful with, what advice would you leave so they could start diving into DeFi in a more efficient and intelligent way?
I think it all starts with education and information. I think that's the first thing that everyone should do, not just starting with doesn't knowing what we are doing, right? So just inform yourself on what if you're just at the beginning, you don't know anything about DeFi, blockchain, or anything on this thing. Start with Bitcoin. So we need to understand what's Bitcoin, how does it work, what's the blockchain of a Bitcoin, and how the bitcoins are issued, what's mining, and everything. I think that's Bitcoin. It's really the first brick on this house that you need to build, right? If you're going to start with Ethereum, Arbitrum, DeFi, you're going to start with the roof, and you cannot start a house with the roof, right? You need to start doing the wall, and the first brick of the wall is to understand how Bitcoin works, right? So there's a lot of ways to do that nowadays. When I started in 2015, that was really difficult to find someone or some place that we had reliable information on how these things work. Now you have books, YouTube, whatever. You can choose the better way for you to understand that. But I think that's it for the ones that are starting with Bitcoin. Understand how it works. Try the Bitcoin blockchain a little bit, so you can get a glimpse or get an experience on what's happened. Then you move to Ethereum blockchain, DeFi, Arbitrum, all these other blockchains. I think that's the best advice for everyone that are starting. The ones that have already started on that, I would advise them to go into DeFi and start dealing with all these DEX, this staking environments, and everything on the DeFi side. Be careful, because as you said, there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of things that they are doing there. There's sometimes not so good people on this environment as well. right? So there's some scams and things, so you need to be careful on that. So don't invest a lot of money, don't put all your money on that. The idea that I'm saying is that just put a money for you, the money that you would invest in a training, for example, right? Just money for you to learn and understand the move or the words that the people are really building on the fly.
Great. Well, I am sure that for the ones who are going to start, they're going to be very much careful in these first steps. And I'm sure for those who you advise to continue and give the next step, they are for sure going to be attentive to these new advancements and new stuff coming on. We always leave our episodes on Madiff's page on LinkedIn, so everyone who couldn't watch them live can watch them after we leave them posted, and we leave them with your social media, so of course people can keep track of what you have going on. Especially because you, in the beginning, you already told us that you have a lot of stuff happening. Is the book going to be out in the next 1 2 months? When is it supposed to be out?
The book in Portuguese, I'm talking with the editor. It's probably going to be now. It's already available on the Kindle on
Okay, no.
Amazon, but the one on paper it's going to be available probably in May or June, right? And I'm also working on a translation that to English. Mm, Probably it's gonna be before the paper book in May. I hope that in February or March I will have the English book as well. It translated to English, but also on Kindle on
Well,
Amazon.
and we hope as well to see it and keep following you on social media. Thank you again, Gustavo, for accepting our invitation and for bringing the file a little bit closer to our followers. And I really hope to keep following your work and what you're going to be doing this year.
Great. Thank you very much for the invitation. It was really a pleasure to discuss with you. And can see that you still have a lot of the questions, so we can talk later in another episode if you want. And if someone here that still has some question about that, I'm available, as you said, on all the social media. It's just search for FinTrader. It's there, just me. So it just we can interact and I can solve the questions that you have. Thank you very much.